Hi, everyone. So Bobby had mentioned that he was out to an event today, so I'm gonna be hosting this meeting, but I think it's gonna be like a fairly short one. I was just going to show where we stand with the business white paper that we've been working on in the business workstream, and I'm happy to get comments on that. And yeah, but I don't think that's gonna fill the full hour. So I think we can wait a couple more minutes for people to trickle in, and then we can get started. Quinn, just out of curiosity, how was the kind of the aftermath of the FI workshop and the quest, I guess, to align on common specifications for all the IP vendors?
I think the workshop was excellent at starting the conversation, and we now have a small group actively working on refining the proposed metrics into a formal list that we can, submit as a actual document to OCP.
Okay, that's great. How many parameters have you kind of zeroed in on that you want to use as a way to benchmark the FIs?
We're prioritizing the list, and I think that's evolving. We're going to work with initially a core initial set that we'll then grow from. So, but I think
Okay.
we have, and we're trying to basically start from, I'd say, the most straightforward to the more subtly difficult to specify ones.
And then would you release those as kind of like a 1.1 and a 1.5 version that basically gets continuously more granular, or would those become like, would that stay the same spec, or would you have like bigger revisions of that?
I think we're trying to make sure that our first release, we at least get enough of them that we're all comfortable with.
Yeah.
And obviously that will evolve over time, but I think we're hoping to narrow it down and even for the first release. I mean, not narrow down, encompass all the ones we think are important in the first release.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. That's good to hear. Thank you. Thanks for the update. Okay, so I think we have a couple people on the call. Not a huge amount, but I think it's fine. I would just get started anyway. So as I mentioned, Bobby is out today, so I'm just going to take a little bit of time to review where we stand with the business white paper that we've been working on for the last several months. And a couple here of you had been participating with this as well. So to some of you, this may not be news. I think let me maybe start by showing my screen here. I think this one is good. Okay, so I had presented the last time I think about this in July, and back then we were talking a little bit more about why we're writing this white paper. So in the end, all of this got started with a series of talks from companies in the February-March timeframe, and after kind of like deciding what we could be doing to address some of these business challenges that have been brought up, we kind of eventually decided to write this white paper to kind of like explain the different how different technology choices are related to one another. And so I think what we have now, like I think zeroed in on is in terms of target audience that we would like to target this paper towards product managers and system architects that may have heard of chiplets, may want to understand better, like or have probably heard of the benefits and that now want to understand better. Well, if they have a certain application, how should they think about this? And I think we try to put an emphasis on with whatever in whatever topic we talk about, to also talk about the cost associated with it. Does that make sense? So I can go here. Like I didn't necessarily want to go through the entire paper because this is a lot of pages. I can do one thing and put this already in the chat so that people can take a look at this on their own, because in the end, the goal of presenting this is also to get people's input on saying we should change certain things or what they liked about the paper. But I did want to like kind of talk about the outline of the paper, which I think is like at a high enough level that we're not going to spend many hours doing that. So I think as I had mentioned, we were kind of going from the goal is to string together both the technical aspects and then how they come or how they relate to the costs and the challenges of building a chiplet-based systems. So we're starting with a short introduction and positioning why we think this white paper is different from all the other papers that have been written about chiplets. And mainly, I think if I had to summarize it, I would say a lot of the other work, especially the more, like, let's say the work, like the white papers that talk about chiplets in more general terms, usually focus on all the benefits, which is great, but then it's harder to understand, like, well, if you actually wanted to design something, what do you have to keep in mind, and is it actually the right choice for you, and how do you make that decision? So that's kind of the like motivating in the introduction. Then we're starting out with a chiplet architecture section that just talks about in which ways, like when people say chiplets, there are different ways in which you can build a system using chiplets. So just a little bit of background on a couple of ideas of why this may be useful to you. Then we have a section on die-to-die interfaces where we talk about a little bit of the communication stack, the different metrics that you use to measure die-to-die interfaces, and we are referring to this earlier version of the phi comparison table here, and then we have a short table just of some of the most popular interfaces to compare those and give people some initial numbers there. Then fourth is chiplet packaging. That one is a fairly like 4 pages, and I think has a lot of good details. From what we found was that packaging tends to be one of the topics that is covered less when people talk about chiplets, but it's very important because there is this strong connection between, say, the bandwidth that you need to transport, the interface that you're choosing, and the package that you need to realize that interface. And because the cost of these packages can be dramatically different, we thought it was worthwhile to kind of point out the different classes of packages that exist and the trade-offs that you're making. And then like tying that back in with, if you're talking about a certain interface, what does that actually mean in terms of the underlying package that you're assuming when you talk about, say, a bunch of wires or UCIe or something else. Then as the fifth section here, we talk about test and probe, briefly motivating why test and probe are important and possibly even more important to chiplet systems than they are for monolithic designs. And then just talking more at a high level about the different areas where like what can be tested and how how you can get kind of a rough cost estimate for the test effort that you have to do for each of the die that you're building. Then number 6, I think, is a little bit kind of the after we now have introduced all of the technology choices, that goes into then actually talking about, well, how do you now model a chiplet-based system development in terms of its cost structure. And so that's initially starting with a comparison of how chiplet-based design is different from monolithic design because chiplets, I guess, like if you think about like, is it economically feasible, and specifically looking at the return of investment, you have to take a broader lens than just for a single monolithic product design, because very likely the goal is to be able to reuse your chiplets. Only then will you really start to see, or then you will start to see a lot of benefits. There is also the use case of just yield improvement, but I think for this paper, we specifically wanted to take an approach and say yield improvement, that alone is easy to quantify if that helps you, but there are other harder to measure things like how much is it worth if you can accelerate your time to market by half a year. And so we addressed those things in this section as well. Then here in 7, we talk about the open chiplet marketplace, and I would say this one is just a starting point. Our thinking was that for this paper, there's likely going to be people that just want to use a chiplet methodology for their own products, but others that are also trying to understand how they can leverage chiplets that may be coming available soon and incorporate them from third parties. So this was Kash who had been writing this and just made a couple of points on basically what needs to come together so that an open chiplet ecosystem can work, and what are some of the things that we have to look out for. Then in number 8, we talk about chiplet design standardization, which is reviewing some of the other OCP efforts in the CDX group, but also the kind of the underlying motivation here is to talk about like if you want specifically this open chiplet marketplace, or even kind of like harmonization within your organization to have chiplets be very like easily reusable, then having like standards around chiplet design is very helpful, and that just goes into more detail as to why that is. Yeah, and then the last section is on next steps and a couple of ideas of how chiplets can be leveraged even as an intermediate solution. And yeah, so those are the sections that we have, plus then a lot in the appendix that we still have to reorganize a little bit, I think. But there's more detail even there. So does anyone have questions so far as to why we're doing this and how we're structuring our white paper? Okay, then I think the other information I can talk about is just where we stand with this. So we've been, I think the initial sections have been filled in for a while now. We spent, I would say, the last month or two just fine-tuning some of the sections and fine-tuning some of the images that we have in here. And at this point now, I would say the content is more or less like complete, and all the authors have kind of like read through the entire document and kind of given their thumbs up. So the last steps that are missing is now to port this over into a proper OCP format of a white paper. There's a template that I'm currently working on shifting everything over to, and then afterwards we would then have to start with the like formal process of submitting this as a contribution to OCP. And so we've targeted to start that process at like towards mid-end of January 2024, and then have it go to the incubation committee, which is kind of like the last sign-off by early February. So any questions? So then I guess one just like call for help or call for just engagement here is, in principle, we would love to have as much feedback as possible on this, like especially before publishing this. If anybody has the time to go through sections of this document or even the whole document and just leave a couple of comments or reach out specifically about some of these like topics that where you maybe disagree or you will want to strengthen it another way, we'd love to have your feedback there. So that's kind of also the reason for bringing this up here one more time before it's finalized in a way. And another way to help would also be to, if you have colleagues or so that like are in this category or like related to kind of this audience that we talked about initially, people that may know a little bit less about chiplets but want to learn about it, that would be helpful if you can also circulate that work and basically others to help review and give comments so that we can have as much kind of like publishing input as possible.
Hey, Mark, this is
Yes.
John. So
Yeah.
I sat in on the calls for a little bit and then just got really, really busy and didn't have the time. And it's impressive the work product that everyone has come up with. I'd be happy to read it over and, you know, throw my comments in just in the odd help, you know, possibility I might be able to help or contribute in some way. Because this is good work.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, that would be really helpful. And your early comments like on the calls were like I think were very helpful, like guiding us even to getting to this point. And if you have the time to give a couple of comments, that would be much appreciated.
Yep, you bet.
Awesome. Thanks.
I will. I'll try and get them out. I may have a little bit of time next week to try and take a good look at it. We're in the middle of building a bunch of boards for one of our products, and it's been keeping me busy. But I'm about through all of that. So
yeah, no, I understand that. There's always like other responsibilities as well, so it's kind of sometimes you have more time than other times. Does anybody else have comments, thoughts?
by the way, Merrick, I don't know if it's just me, but your audio is a little garbled.
Oh, okay. Thanks for letting me know. I can see if I can switch my microphone.
Is this one better?
Much better.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess I'm sorry that you had to live through the audio, and now when I'm done, I have better. But at least better late than never, I guess.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay. I think I have like 4 microphones in my setup here, and I don't usually check what Zoom is using, but maybe it's worth making sure that the good microphone is being used. Does anybody else have any questions or comments? Okay, so aside from the white paper, does anybody else want to talk about anything since we have lots of time? But otherwise, I'm also happy to end the meeting early since we didn't have kind of a dedicated speaker or anything.
Well, I guess one question, have you put much thought in about what's next, if anything?
That's a great question, and I was going to bring this up in the business group today afterwards because I've been thinking about this and I'm not sure what we would be doing. I think this was something like achievable. We had identified a number of other things that in the industry or like with standards should happen, but it's tricky to carve out something that is also like where we have the right people in the room and where it's also not like too much work for everybody to get this done. So I was gonna like pick the brains of our group right after this. But I guess if you have any ideas, I'm interested to listen.
Okay, let me put a little bit of thought in it. I do have an idea, but I want to, you know, think it through a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, sounds good. Anybody else?
Hi, I have one quick question. We
Sure.
had the workshop at the Carnegie Mellon.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering that when I see the website, the presentations and coming soon, so I'm wondering when we're gonna update that the presentation data on the page.
The presentation data on the OCP website or on the wiki?
Yeah. On the wiki, there's the website.
Yes, yeah.
to talk about the workshop, and then because of the presentation was really good, so I was looking for that presentation.
You mean the presentation specifically from the FI workshop?
Yeah, exactly.
I guess maybe Quinn can comment on that since he was running or like leading that effort.
I need to check. Boppy was going to put that out. We were just waiting for all the presenters to sign off. I thought
Okay.
he already released that. But I will check, and you're welcome to send me an email, and I will follow up with you. But I will confirm if that is been released yet or not.
Okay. Actually, I emailed to Papi, but probably he may forgot. Anyway, yeah, I will forward it to you again.
Yeah, we've been trying to get everyone to give us a formal sign off so we can release all of the material. That is the intent. And before Boppy left for supercomputer, I thought we had finalized that, but I've been busy this past week and don't actually
I
know if
see.
we closed the loop on that or not.
Okay, yeah. I'm gonna, the notify again with you, and then wait for the result. Thank you.
Perfect.
Okay, if there are any other questions, thoughts to discuss? Otherwise, I'm happy to give everyone back 38 minutes, and we can still, whoever wants to join the business call, we can do that in at 9 a.m. Pacific or noon Eastern time.
Sounds good.
All right, awesome. Thanks everyone for joining.
Thank you, Mark, for filling in.
Thank you.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Hi, Jinyan.
Hi, James.
Hey, Marek.
Wait, sorry, I have to select. Okay, say again.
Oh, yeah, just say, hey, Marek.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. No. I had issues with my audio, so like sometimes, you know how the new monitors have, like the HDMI can convey sound as well, but then the monitor doesn't have a speaker, but the system thinks it can choose that audio output. So then the audio goes nowhere, and then I don't hear anything.
Yes, that happened to me a lot of times when I plug into my monitor and my monitor doesn't speaker, but somehow it has an interface and it just, yeah, trying to switch in there.
Yeah, it seems like quite like something that could easily designed around, or at least to have like kind of a state in the HDMI to say audio being conveyed, but no audio resource available. So let's not even offer it. And instead, like, because I feel like when I see other people on calls, I think that's probably the most I like often like, or the most frequent cause of people not hearing somebody in meetings.
Yes, that's I think that's definitely a bug somewhere, right? Either like probably some software somewhere.
Yeah, yeah. Hi, John.
Did you
Hey, good afternoon. Or well, I guess it's still morning out.
Yeah, no, I just got an early lunch in the break in between.
Okay, great. So you're on the East Coast?
Yeah,
Eric?
that's right. I'm close to Boston.
Oh, okay. Nice town.
Huh?
Oh, nice town, Boston.
Yeah,
I used
yeah.
to I used to cover it as an FAE a long time ago.
Oh, really? Okay. That's so then you also know like would you go to like restaurants and stuff with clients, or just visit them at their headquarters or
Well,
at their company?
I ate some a lot of good Italian food up in the North End.
Okay, yeah.
I'm a yeah, it was it was hard to find a bad place up there.
Parking is
Not to
very difficult
mention some
though.
good seafood as well.
Yeah, that's true.
Some good chowder as
Hmm.
That's right.
as y'all say it up there.
Hmm.
and the lobster?
Yep,
Oh
yep,
yeah, definitely. Lobster roll. Yeah.
exactly. Although the prices, I mean, it's crazy. Like I personally am vegetarian, so I like haven't been trying the lobster in a long time. But it's just like when you see them like in the restaurants, like $30-$40 or more, it just seems but it is, I guess, like a speciality.
Is
Sorry.
it's overpriced, I think, a lot for tourists. Like
Yeah.
us.
Well, so I live in Raleigh Durham area,
Okay.
and I would always get a lobster roll. I was flying American all the time because
Oh,
it was a Raleigh hub at the time,
okay.
and there was a lobster roll it was actually at the airport that was actually decent, and I would if it was anywhere close to lunchtime, I would get one on the way back.
Yeah, that's a good treat. I mean, flying can be stressful, so at least have some good food on the way.
That's right. That was my philosophy.
Yeah. All right. I think we have enough people here, so we can get started. So some of you were also on the call earlier, so we're always just kind of reviewing where we stand. But for now, this group, I had a couple more like things I wanted to talk about. Um, the
So was the meeting earlier ended early and
oh
ended earlier?
yes, yeah. So this was the
I see.
general
Okay.
meeting, but we ended
Yeah.
like 20 minutes after starting.
Got it. Yeah, I was trying to join a half right an hour later because of another meeting. I didn't see anyone there, so
Yeah, no,
I
that's
thought
that's
they
fine.
were
Yeah, it was a short one.
right.
So I had been I can share my screen again and this time pull up the version that I'm actively working on. So let's see. I basically started transferring everything into this template that we have from the OCP. And one of the things, like it's a little bit different in font, spacing and so on. So I'll have to slightly tweak some of the text to make sure that it still fits in roughly the 20 pages. One of the things that I wanted to, oh wait, you're not seeing anything. Now you should be able to see it. One of the things I wanted to ask about is they had a section here on compliance with open compute project tenets. And I hadn't seen this in the previous business white paper, so I just wanted to see if this is something people had to fill out in the past.
No, I mean, I did a white paper maybe more than 2 years ago, though, so many things could have changed, Marek.
Yeah.
But I don't believe this one had, I mean, this was like 5 pages or 15. I guess it's 15 pages. Good grief, we
Yeah.
actually wrote 15 pages. Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, so I was looking at this.
Yeah, I don't recall filling that out. On the other hand, maybe DJ did, because you
Okay.
know he's an OCP guy. So
Yeah.
I
Okay, so
think
maybe
this was one of the meeting they might ask you to present some presentation,
Okay.
a PowerPoint. I remember one of them, I think like before, but we definitely don't need that in your paper, but it's just something they might ask you to present, I think like PowerPoint. In one
Oh,
of
I
those
see.
committees.
Okay, that makes sense.
You have to give like 2-3 points and say like why this paper is matter in some area, right? Because of the principle of OCP, right? You have to like talk about like, oh, this is very open side or this efficient. I think like 2-3 or 3-4 of them, something like that. Some points they pointed it.
Yes, exactly.
That's
They
what
want to
guideline-
see. Yeah, okay. Yeah, they want to see 4 out of the 5 addressed, I think. And I was
Yeah.
just, I mean, with chiplets, I think it's like fairly easy to state that it's all of the above. So I was just like writing a little bit why I believe all of the tenets are being kind of matched here. But then I'll take this out of the main paper and just like put this into a couple slides that we can then present probably at the incubation
Yes.
committee or so, I assume. Or maybe at the server subgroup committee.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right. One of those group, I think remember, yeah, just one of those group they require that to submit that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I think we had discussed it last time, but the timeline I think is very achievable given that it's all just cosmetic changes at this point, I think. So what we outlined last time was to do a presentation to the general group on January 19th. Then the week after on January 24th, present to the server subgroup committee. And then early February, I think like 2nd or 3rd or something like that, we would be able to present to the incubation committee.
Marek, a quick question. The not, I think you're modifying into the new format, but the old link,
Yep.
it's this appendix, and then that runs into many pages.
Yes.
So the total document is over 30 pages. So you said, you keep saying 20 or 22. Is that like up to the appendix is what you're going to put in?
Yeah, so I was counting kind of like introduction to next steps as the 20
Okay.
pages. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's true.
So
And
that means that I know if you have more information you cannot fit into there, you can always add a lot of appendix to it, right? That's what you mean, right, Marek?
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I continue.
Anu, do you think that's okay
Yeah,
to do
yeah.
or yeah?
No,
okay.
no, I totally understand because there's a lot of information here. And so I know you're trying to consolidate it and give a sort of a little flavor of each of these chapters, because they all go towards how to, whether you want to do a chiplet or no, right? You have to consider each
Exactly.
of these. So,
Yeah.
fair, very fair.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, okay, so this is helpful to know about the section that I was drafting, but then I can like take that like out of the document and keep it somewhere else. The other thing that I had discussed with Bapi and Michael Schill is the licensing question. And so there are 2 options for us. And one option sounds to be a lot easier than the other. Option number 1 is to just add a section that talks that basically describes that this is a Creative Commons license. And the other option is to do a multi-party copyright agreement. So then we would have to have all the authors with all the and all the companies signing. So what Michael said is that if all of the authors agree that this can be Creative Commons, then nobody needs to sign anything, and we just basically release it under that license.
That's always sounds simple to me. We did that all the times.
Okay, good. Yeah, so then I
Yes,
guess not trying to have like peer pressure here, but is anyone against using the Creative Commons in this group?
Yeah, I'm not familiar what that is. I don't think I'll have a problem with it. I know that the content that I submitted, I already had approved through our NXP legal.
Okay.
So I think then I'm it's probably fine then.
Okay. Yeah, so I think go ahead, Anna.
So I need to also, I don't know what the Creative Commons thing is. We didn't do that for the first white paper, but I will have to. I think I haven't actually gone through my legal yet, but since you know, I've got one chapter, I probably should at least get that approved through legal before we sign anything. But it's very harmless chapter. Everybody knows it, but it just has to go through the motions at big. These companies like to have rules and regulations. So.
Yeah. So I think Trent, to your question, the way I haven't studied up too much on the Creative Commons license, but I think my understanding is that once you release something as Creative Commons, it basically is in that pool of freely usable things, and if anybody wants to use it afterwards, I think there are maybe different flavors, like you have to attribute that, you have to make any derivative work still also open Creative Commons, and you basically can't be able to make a profit off of that or something. But the issue that we had before, talking to Bapi, was if we use Creative Commons, then it's a different, assuming we need permissions for publishing some images that are not ours, then it's harder to make it Creative Commons than just having it as a copyright by OCP, because it basically means that we're then making it such that anybody can use it for anything as long as it stays Creative Commons.
So I was just sitting here looking at these images on the screen.
Yeah.
Are those going to be problematic for Creative Commons?
That is a question. So I'm not. Most of these you have gotten out of publications, or I know some of them you said you have them here. This is, I guess, we drew ourselves. This we drew ourselves, and then there was. Oh yeah, and in the backup you had something about the different packaging options, and I think a couple of cross sections were from NXP.
Yeah, there's a couple things I grabbed from other papers, which I think I referenced there.
Okay.
So I could always just create new drawings, although they're pretty basic.
Yeah.
And I think that'd be best. That way we don't have to deal with getting permission.
Yeah, I believe so. If
the soft you are copying from, they are also open source, and you referencing back a link journey, that should be fine. Unless something that you are not so sure about that.
Yeah, I mean,
it's hard to say. Yeah, they're so simple. I think I'd rather just recreate them and just avoid any type of controversy.
So I know you have a fair number of figures in here. So would you be okay then just basically adapting them yourselves and just put it yourself and putting in the replicated or our own version of this?
Yes, let me do that.
Yep. Okay, that sounds good. Yeah, no, I mean that's certainly the safer option. I'm just
I think it's just the ones you just showed, and then like you said, some of the cross sections are from NXP anyway, and I already have approval to
perfect.
Disclose those, so those are fine.
Yeah, I'm just going through the backup. So this is one of them. Yeah, I think this one probably we would have to redraw, but that shouldn't be too hard, or at least it's just a there's nothing special about this.
This one though, it's actually just from the ASC website. So this one the ASC is not going to have a problem with it, right? I'm not taking it from a paper or anything. Yeah. So those might be okay. But the other ones that are taken from, you know, publications. I want to make sure I redraw those. I don't know. What do y'all think? Am I okay with the ones that are just taken from? And okay, and this Xilinx one, that's kind of interesting one also, because that's also just from their website, right?
Yeah.
So I think to your point, James, it's open source.
Yeah, I think like maybe I can, let me take this as an action item to just email Michael and ask him specifically about this, like what impact that has on the figures that we're using. Because I think the issue, as far like I'm not an expert in copyright or anything, but my understanding is that just because somebody puts it on a website doesn't mean that you can use it in your own stuff. Like they basically still own the rights to the image, and you can ask them to say like, hey, can I use it? And that it's and there's like different procedures technically for saying, can I use it versus can I make it so that everybody can use it? And so they may, if we ask them, for example, like when you write like a thesis or something, you can go to IEEE or somebody else and say like, I want to use this in my thesis, but then still the university holds the rights to that thesis. But it's in this case, we're basically giving it away as something that anybody can use then.
Yeah, I guess we need to get some clarification.
Yeah.
Your point about, you know, if it's a publication, you know, for example, if I take something, you know, a publication from the IEEE site, you know, it's specifically, you know, it's in there, right? It says that, you know, IEEE or whoever owns the rights to this, right? And you need to get permission to use it. But so I'm not sure if I go to, you know, Xilinx website and they have a, you know, an image that I click on, but if we get clarification on that, that'd help. Because like that one I took from Xilinx, I think that's a good one, and it's kind of difficult to reproduce that. You know, it's a nice example,
Yes.
but
yeah.
So I think we just need to get some clarification on that.
Okay. Yep. Sounds good. So I'll write that email to Michael. Okay. So yeah, so I think that is good. Then do you maybe at least Trent and Anu, do you want to like basically ask your legal departments and get back to me by, well, next week we're going to cancel anyway because of Thanksgiving,
Yeah.
but then the week after,
Yeah.
just to see if you have a preference to, because I'm happy also to do the copyrights thing. It's gonna probably take like possibly it has the potential to delay us in releasing it, just because probably like if I did that and I have to submit it to our legal team, then probably 2-3 weeks later they'll get back to me.
I know. Yeah. So Marek, would it be able to send all of us a link to this damn creative contents thing that you showed earlier? So
Yes.
because I can't explain it in like to my legal very nicely, I'll bet. So it's
Right.
easier if there's some document that they just read and then they like hopefully they're okay with.
Yes, so let me do this. I'm gonna put this in the chat here, and I can also send out the new link to everyone in the meeting notes. And then at the bottom, so this is kind of the new document that has the template as well. And at the bottom of this here, at license, they have the link about like what the Creative Commons license is, and you can ask questions to OCP and so on. So I hope that section would be enough for you to point your legal department to.
I am always terrified of the legal guys. Just they come up with so many roadblocks.
I know. No, it's and I guess the issue is like at least for the way it works for us, like you submit a ticket and then they say like, well, this may take a while. Like, don't check back before 2 weeks because we're just very busy. And then
they're always
exactly,
because they just like they make more work for themselves if you ask me. But don't tell anyone I said that.
I know.
Yeah, but they bill by the hour, and
makes sense, right?
That's true. Okay, yeah, so then this is a good reference for you to take that to them. Okay,
sounds good. Thank you.
Yep, sure. So yeah, I think that's all I have so far. I've been like otherwise I taken like 4 or 5 hours just trying to merge this thing and address a couple of the comments in the old document. I'd seen a couple more of you have left comments, so thank you very much for all of that, and I included most of that. So I think there's only one comment left in here where I didn't hear back from. Oh no, is it in viewing mode? That's why I don't see it. From Cliff, that I want to get his, like he raised a question, but not really sure what he meant by like, or how he would implement it. But all of the other comments I've addressed, and usually just like put them into the document. So I think we're good on that front. So yeah, otherwise I probably will still like work on this next week to make sure that all of the stuff copies over into the new version, and also kind of going through kind of the nitpicky stuff of they have specific guidelines here how they want the paper to look in terms of like fonts and what tables should look like and so on. So I would try to make it such that it has kind of an OCP feel to it, but I wouldn't change anything in the contents. Does anyone have questions about this or comments? Okay, so I think like I personally think that's straightforward, and if I have any more issues, I'll let the group know. The other thing that John had brought up in the previous meeting before is I wanted us to think a little bit about what we may want to do as a next step, that now, like, even though January or end of January is still a little bit away, but I think in terms of like most of the people on this call, there is not much more to do at this point. Maybe there's going to be like one like quick skim at the end when this is like in its final release form, but until then, I don't foresee much like that it would be needed, except for, I guess, Trent, for example, like helping redraw some of the images.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted to see if you have ideas on what else we could tackle in this group, or even what your like appetite is, so to speak. Like how much, like, do you have ideas of what to do and that's important to you? I would also have a few things I had on the list, but yeah, happy to discuss that a bit more. So maybe first I would pick on Anu and just ask about your previous experience, because I feel like there was maybe a similar arc to the business group, like because you had topics for a while and then kind of it wound down. Like, how did
Yeah.
you handle kind of the like having the group and working on something versus not working on something?
No, I mean it's always great when we can do something that makes sense for us as well as the community as a whole.
Right.
So like the first time we did stuff, there was a lot of excitement to it, and then once it was done, it was like, okay, I think the group just disbanded.
Yeah.
For some time until you took over. You know, if you come up with something really clever and cool to work with, I'm interested in being part of it. It just needs to make sense.
Right. And that's
and
kind of the challenge, to find something
Yeah.
that makes sense, and that's also
Yeah.
doable in a way.
Right. Yeah, exactly. In a reasonable time frame, because this is all sort of extra hours, right? So
Exactly. Yeah. That's kind of my challenge as well. So I feel like the one other thing that I could see us having, or as having like a tangible impact, but it's a little bit more busy and boring work, is to help with kind of like the reorganization and of data on the wiki and the ODSA subgroup, because I feel like there's a lot of efforts going on, and it's if you haven't been part of this for a couple months and know the right people to ask, it's kind of tricky to find all this information.
right.
That's been like one of the other things. I talked to Bapi about this in the past, and he's in principle, he's behind this. It's also just like finding the time to do it.
Yeah, I
What
agree.
about,
I mean, that's yeah.
okay. What do others think?
I'm sorry, Mary. Could you repeat? I'm not sure what the question is.
So the question is, I can now see this work coming to an end with the white paper. What's after that? Is there, like Anu was already saying, like it needs to be something that we can manage as a group without like taking over your entire day job, something that's meaningful. And so I wanted to gather some like just bring it up and see if anybody has good ideas, or even like getting people's input and saying like, if there is something that I can get excited about, yes, I'm happy to continue working on a new project, or like this was it for me and I'm gonna do more of like my other job, or whatever it is.
You know, something that we're trying to get our head around here internally is, you know, getting back to the business model. And I know we just had recently the presentation from the folks there at
Yeah.
Was it UCLA? I can't remember now. Somewhere out there in
Yeah, no,
California.
UCLA, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And it seemed like they were struggling for some empirical data to put into their models.
Yes.
And you know, one big part of our, we're really starting to dig into this. You know, one big part of the business case we're trying to look at, where we see some holes. There's two areas. One of them is the benefit of decreased cycle time, or the time to market, right? The compute time and resource times for a shorter design cycle that, you know, I think I've got a pretty good handle on. But what's really the benefit of, you know, getting a product out there 6 months earlier, 9 months earlier, you know? And I think that that's a big part of the business case for chiplets, right?
Yeah,
And
fully agree.
so perhaps, you know, if the rest of you, or, you know, whatever you think, but I think a good idea might be to try to you know, work with the folks at UCLA and see if, from our own experiences and our own, you know, do a little data mining on our own and help them fill some of those holes in their model, or try to get a little bit more robust model.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting suggestion. The way I'd seen their talk was, I mean, I like the approach that they're putting everything on GitHub and they're trying to make it really like they're trying to make it a scalable architecture, like rather than having just like a big spreadsheet where every time you have to just add tons of columns, like to have just with a couple lines of code or instructions to be able to model like complex systems and the cost overheads of that. I didn't necessarily see them like doing any kind of work on this like opportunity cost thing. And I personally am
Yeah.
also like I see that internally equally as like everyone talks about like, yes, that should be beneficial, but then it's really hard to measure. And I think my recent thinking on this is you just ultimately need marketing guys to help you say what is the like because it's kind of a quantized decision in a way. Like in the end, it's about X number of units sold additionally because you are like maybe because you have less competitors, or you get another customer on that would sign on if it or that you would lose if you don't bring your product on by a certain time. So all of these things, it's in the end is like depends exactly on the market opportunity that you're going after. So it's very like I don't know how easy it is to. I think you can make some general claims, but I'm not sure how easy it's going to be to get formulas to say I don't know, like 6 months is equal to 10% of peak revenue, for example, or so. Like it like that
Mhm.
that will probably be too far fetched to make it that general.
Yeah, I think you're right, and that's where we're struggling, because I think I saw, I don't know if it was like a Gartner, you know, there's some uh uh general, you know, studies that have been done kind of on a broad basis for, okay, you know, this is, you know, 20%, you know, increase in revenue or whatever if you can get it 6 months earlier. But I think, you know, for us, it's going to be very market segment. You know, first of all, semiconductor, right? Secondly, market segment, right? You know, cellular, you know, versus auto versus IoT. You know, it's, and you know, we're struggling to have, you know, to find our own internal data, and we're kind of looking at, okay, you know, can we somehow look at different segments and make an estimate? And you know, you mentioned, you know, go talk to the marketing guys, which is what we do. And first of all, usually, their claims never really pan out.
Yeah, that's the other issue, that of course there's always like, especially when you're making predictions, it's usually there's
Yeah.
a goal in mind behind this, and it's like, well, we
Uh,
need to meet this kind of number, so we think
yeah.
we can do it. And of course
And
it's just like somebody making a guess.
yeah, and maybe the time to market thing is a little bit too ambitious, but I think there's some other areas in their model where they're kind of struggling to
Right.
have real data they can fall back on, and maybe as a team, we might be able to help out in some of those areas. And of course, we'll have to be careful to make sure that it's not confidential. We can keep it as anonymous as possible, but we might be able to talk in generalities that might help them with their model.
Yeah. Anu, I think you had like when you were doing the cost model, there was this iteration of having the one on the Google Docs, and then I think you talked about a Python version. I'm not sure. Where have you left this off so far?
So there is a Python version there.
Okay.
And it basically it does sensitivity analysis. You can have multiple variables, and then you can code it. So there's a basic there is code uploaded thanks to this wonderful programmer at Google who wrote it all up for us.
Wow.
And the algorithm is published, so people can clearly figure out quite easily what the math was in doing what. So but it basically the premise is the same as the original premise. It takes silicon yielded cost, substrate yielded cost. The assembly cost is one magic number that you put in. You can put in quality cost, so depending on DPPM rates that you want, IP cost, all of that can be added in. Ultimately the thought process was that maybe one of the EDA vendors would like to roll that into their systems to when people do feasibility analysis, not just on the technical side in terms of architecture and flow wise, but also a cost, a quick cost. We thought they would roll it in. A couple of people approached us from Siemens, a couple of others, and we said, hey, it's all there, take it and run with it. If you make changes and improvements, put it back online, or whatever it is, because it's open right now. And I honestly don't know. I haven't heard anything about it in the last few months. So
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, I've actually downloaded that and was going to start taking a look at that one also. And so we have a couple options also, right? There's one this Python script, it's a new and other people had worked on, and then we have this UCLA thing, and it'd be interesting to see, if they come to the same conclusions, or there's some assumptions, that need to be considered in one or the other.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the end, it's probably like if they come out with different recommendations, I feel like it's just differences in the underlying math and how things are factored in. Because I feel like ultimately it's just it is pretty like simple to see how you end up with a certain result. And it's just like, as one thing, it's too hard for any one person to like basically keep all of these things in their head at the same time. So that's why you have these spreadsheets, but you can always like trace it back and say like, oh, I see kind of a bend in the curve, and it's because at some point this starts overtaking this, and so you can afterwards justify it.
True.
So yeah, but I guess it would be true. It would be nice to know, like, is there anything, say, that Anu and team had done that the UCLA guys could benefit from, or vice versa, where, because like at least the one thing I kind of appreciated was that they were trying to come up with these, I guess, like units or like that you can that you represent die and give them properties, and then you can start using these blocks rather than like having everything just in like columns or so. But I guess Anu, have you done that similarly? Like or have you been able to attend that UCLA talk, or do you know what we're talking about?
No, I actually attended one half of the talk.
Okay.
Because I think it started in the 8 a.m. meeting and I had
Yeah,
a
that's right.
conflict and I joined at the 9 a.m. And so I listened to the
Yeah.
second half. And I kept thinking I need to go back and look at it closer to see what they've done different, and I haven't managed.
Gotcha. Okay. No worries. I mean, that's fine. I even wonder if, I mean, to me, part of the question could even be, like, obviously a lot of this information is out there. Like, as Anu mentioned, there's they've published the paper about like how they do the math. There are these GitHub repos, or I'm not sure where, like, Anu, your Python version is hosted, but ultimately all of this is available. So then could the next bit of work be to just make it more easily accessible? Like, could you think about having, for example, like a web version or like an interface that is like that speaks to somebody that doesn't want to like get into the details, and they just have a couple drop down menus and can like kind of like drag and drop a couple items into a system and size them. Yeah.
So we did do that. So if you look at the original spreadsheet version, there is the first tab allows you to do a quick and dirty version. So for a program manager who does not want to get into the weeds, he or she could actually put in some very basic details. You do need to know, some process technology, yield numbers, yield, the defect density, or at least make some predictions. The tool also has some default numbers associated with it.
Yeah.
Yield is a really difficult thing to predict, and I hate to say we predicted, but we basically said for a mature process, we'll say it's this. For an emerging process and for a brand new process kind of division. So you have to take that with a grain of salt, but it would give somebody an idea of how the silicon cost specifically would change.
Right.
But it's still an Excel spreadsheet. It's not a pretty GUI or anything. And yeah, we stayed away from that.
No, of course, because it is a lot of work. It's just like that's why I'm wondering, like, is there more value in basically having a superset of a model that includes all the best features of the different cost models that are out there? And I know also I've been talking at the at ShipsCon like a couple months back with someone from iMac, and they mentioned that they have their own cost model, and I hadn't followed up on trying to get them here to talk, because it's also Fridays. It's like Friday evening for them, so it's kind of a bad time. But like that would be one option, versus the other one is kind of like increasing accessibility to these models, or but there's, I guess, only so much you can do.
Yeah, right. I think there is another cost model, Amy Lewans. I've actually talked to her once and shared our model with her.
Okay.
Hers is, of course, I don't think it's free because she does it as a business.
I see.
Yeah, and she's been actually publishing every Monday. She publishes on LinkedIn something about the cost, and I'm sorry, but I haven't actually had the bandwidth to go through all of her postings. But her stuff is interesting. It is not, I don't believe it is truly open source because it's her business.
Yeah.
But she has an interesting perspective. She's been doing cost modeling for folks for a long time in the world of monolithic. So she has a very good grip on like process and what each process step costs on the assembly side. Yeah,
okay.
yeah. It's very detailed because she sent me some material a long time ago. Amy Lujens, I think would be her name.
Okay.
And I could be totally off on the spelling, but let me take a look and see if I
Lugns.
Amy Lujan.
J-E.
No, Lujan. She's her company's name is Savansis, SAVANSYS. Yeah, she's got posting on Cost Model Monday. Every Monday, she runs some comparisons. And it's substrate versus assembly versus die cost. So it's really operations cost again.
Okay.
Yeah, but
Oh yeah, that's cool.
yeah, SAVANSYS. That's the name of the company. So you should be able to find her on LinkedIn very easily. She posts
Yeah.
regularly.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm seeing it now. Okay. Yeah, that's a good starting point. Okay, so but I like this discussion at least on, so it sounds like to me for cost models there may be something we can do, and it would take, I think, a little bit of initial work to make sure that we're not just duplicating work that's already out there, and make sure that there is a benefit. But that may be one area that we can focus on.
Right.
And then I guess towards this whole idea of kind of like being a webmaster for ODSA, what are people's thoughts on this?
Yeah, I'm not too terribly keen on it, but
No, that's fine. Like
just my opinion.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's good. It's like the kind of thing that can also take a long time and has some value, but it's not it's obviously not like technical work in that sense. It's just organizing things.
And people only yell at you anyway, so it's one of
I-
those like support services jobs.
That's right. That's right. I mean, I think like I personally like I guess making things look clean, so I get some satisfaction out of like knowing
There
that
you
it looks
go.
better than before. But then still it can take a lot of time, so I have to be cautious with just like taking something like this on. Do others have thoughts on either kind of like helping improve information like from the ODSA or any other topics that we could be working on? Okay, I can just quickly share my screen here. I have Amy Lujan open just for people to see. So I guess that's but yeah, that does actually look pretty cool, like that they, as you were saying, they have all the process steps in here. Is she associated with like basically does she do this work interfacing with various OSATs, or does she?
I don't know, but
Okay.
she probably does, because even before advanced packaging, she was doing this.
Yeah.
So I think she has a very good idea of what different people charge for different layers or whatever.
I mean, it sounds like one other interesting thing could be to just invite her to give a talk also like to the degree that she can share information, but even just she can use it as a plug to like portray her services, but also maybe give us a couple of good anecdotes of what she's seen and come across.
Yeah, if she's willing to, yeah.
Yeah.
We actually worked with Samantha some years ago on this. I didn't realize it was Samantha's till I saw you show this. Yeah, they came in to our factories and took a bunch of data on our processes, and we tried to put together a package cost model.
I see. Okay.
So, and actually, we believed in their method.
Yeah. So it sounds like they basically, like, aside from like, do they not just basically help you go through specific examples, but also help you adapt a methodology that you can compare these things on your own or like cost them out?
Yeah, that was the whole idea. We actually had them come into our factory, and then also they went to OSATs, and then they helped us, create this cost model, so then we could use it for package cost
Yeah.
prediction, estimates for
Yeah,
new
because you
products.
don't want to go to the OSATs for like every idea that you have and like swamp them with requests when only 10% of those are going to pan out.
Yeah, and also, just based on market conditions, right? We'll
Yeah.
get different pricing from the OSATs.
Right, and you kind of want to understand a little bit like what's underneath it, like the more like the trends rather than just like, oh, today I asked and there's high demand, so suddenly it looks bad.
Yeah, so we were trying to really get to, okay, what is, you know, the theoretical cost, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's really interesting. Thanks for the reference, Anu.
Sure, no problem.
Okay, so I think there's not too much else to talk about today then. As I mentioned, I already canceled the meeting for next week, and we can just pick up after that and check in where we stand with redrawing the images, and hopefully by then I have pasted everything into the template and have kind of a more polished version. And yeah, I'll just keep working on this.
Sounds good.
All right.
Sounds good. Thanks, Marek.
Thank
Yep,
you.
thank you.
Happy
And,
Thanksgiving, everyone.
Happy
exactly, yeah.
Thanksgiving. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye,
everyone.
guys.
Thank you.
Bye bye.